Now let's have a look at this video. It's initially for Affinity Photo and it's done on the iPad. There are 6 easy book cover designs and it's a guide with examples. Now it's only a guide, mind you. It's not an in-depth design class on how to do a book cover. But what I will show you is how to put together book covers on iPad. You could also do it on the desktop, but in this case I've done it on the iPad. I'm trying to show how versatile the iPad is in being able to do this. It means you can do it on the road, you can put together quick samples for clients perhaps, or you might be sitting in a coffee shop wondering how you can put together your own book cover for that fabulous novel that you're writing. Well, here's how you can do it with Affinity Photo, and it's really quite easy. There are just some guidelines you need to follow, and it is those guidelines really that I'm outlining in this exercise. So in setting up a book cover on the iPad, I've included the masters and downloadable files, and you'll find these on my website. I've got 2 websites actually, and the address for these downloads is in the description of this video. Now it's suitable for ebook covers and probably the main cover for print covers. It doesn't show the spine or the back cover, but the most important part of your book is the front cover. That's the part people look at. That's the part they see when they're scrolling through the hundreds of books available in KDP, and your cover needs to stand out. So we'll start by building the first cover in brief detail. There are 6 example covers, and you can see them there, different fonts, different treatment of the images, and different genres, obviously. And all covers are available as AF photo file downloads. See the description for the URL. Now you can see they're all different, and you can see that none of them are just a photograph you've taken plonked on the front cover. They all require a bit of work. It makes them look professional, it makes them look like you care about your book. So let's begin. We'll start by selecting My Presets. You've opened up Affinity Photo on your iPad and selected New, and you're going to create a preset. Now be careful to get the settings right and rename the preset before you save it, so you can come back to it later. And in this case I've named mine, you can see it there, preset 6x9 ebook cover. Now there's a reason for 6x9. It's ideal for KDP, and it's much bigger than any Kindle device that you'll see, and on any of the readers on Apple devices or any of the other devices. But you want your cover to reduce in size so you can see it on the devices. You don't want to have to enlarge that original image, because that's what makes it look terrible, all pixelated and jaggy. You can see the notes layer in this first example file when you download it. There are some sizes recommended there. Now with those sizes in, 6x9, orientation, RGB, because it's digital. We're aiming at digital, remember, not print. So click OK, and there's your front cover. Now obviously it takes up a bit more room on the screen than this, but I've just used 2 fingers to reduce the size so we can see it on the screen. And your document looks like this. I like to work with the whole image there, especially to start with. Now, start by importing your primary image, and in this case, the book is a contemporary romance, and I want something that shouts contemporary romance right from the word go. You could be walking past this on a bookshelf and you catch that in the corner of your eye, scrolling through KDP, and that stands out, clear as a bell, contemporary romance. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but this is a very low-res picture I've used here. It's only 399 by 450 pixels, and I used it as an example of how it will look slightly pixelated because it's been enlarged. The original image is 7336 by 8265, which is gigantic, you must admit. So let's go and have a look at that. Now I have the original imported, there's no jaggies. Place the image and zoom right out so you can grab a corner handle to scale the image down and retain the aspect ratio. Because when I first put this image on the screen, about all I got was the man's head. But I've had to pull the image in from the corners, and you do that to maintain the aspect ratio. If you pull it in from either of the sides, it either makes them very fat or very thin, and you don't want that. So you have to crop the image and get just the part you want. Now you be aware of that when you're pulling in a really large image. It's really difficult to get the entire image in the same aspect ratio as your 6:9, that is. So you use the best part that suits. And lock the layer. You do not want to change this image. Now, setting up the cover image. Covers are rarely just a plain unaltered photograph. You need to set the mood right from the start. So, having set the mood, gradients or other effects are a great way to do this non-destructively. And they're working with the title Digging for Gold in this contemporary romance. So I've set up a gradient that's a gold colour, but it's opaque, 0 opaque left and 100% opaque right. 0 left, 100% right. And that gives you an approximate gradient that you've got there. It's just a slight fogginess over the original image. Now there's the colour image with gradient and nothing around it, no lines. Now to emphasise the implications of digging for gold, let's place an unmistakable gold gradient over his heart, over his billfold and under her hand. Smack the reader visually. You want to emphasise that this is all about gold. Is it him or is it her? Enough already, now we can move on. But if it's too much, leave it out. But you get the idea. Perhaps you could put a circular gradient in there, but there's a reason, you'll see in a moment, why I've got the rectangle. Now let's add a title and a tagline. The text is sans serif font. Now we want it sans serif because we want a contrast. The next slide or so you'll see I've put a serif font in just to show you what it looks like, but we will revert to this sans serif font. There's an inner glow of white and then the outline is black, and you can see in the left hand side you've got inner glow in the FX column and you've got outline in the FX column. Now we apply the text, and the main types of fonts used in this genre, contemporary romance, are serif fonts with flourishes, and you can see a selection of examples I've got there. The most used colours are white, turquoise, pink, red or violet, mostly used in romance. And you can work your way around that, but what we're talking about here is gold. That's the theme. So I've set gold as the colour of the text. Now there we have the love is hot, but is she digging for gold? And you'll see I've got a serif font at the top again now. Inner glow white and an outline in black. And you can see the layers panel there. All that's left is to put in the author name, and I've got the author in capital letters there. And that's really all that's on the cover. You're telling people that this genre is contemporary romance and you're digging for gold. So they kind of know the story. And the tagline, the love is hot, but is she ... digging for gold. So we don't know, but that leads you into the story. And to find out whether she is or not, you would have to read the story. That's the idea of a tagline. Taglines are very difficult to write. You don't want half the story on your front page. People won't stand there reading it. They won't sit at their desk when they're downloading a Kindle book instead of working. But there you go. Work on taglines. That's another video in itself. Now here's some examples with horror, and you can see the layers panel I've got there. As with the previous cover, this cover relies on a series of effects on the image, and the title font is perfect for the genre. And you can see Vampire Diaries. I don't know if you can see it. The word, there's a slight coloration, an FX effect put behind that text. And you can see how they're placed there. There's an ellipse up near the top with the tagline in it. There's no way out. Carrie was a vampire. And there's Carrie looking very vampire-like. It's an interesting genre in which the fonts are often quite complicated and particularly fun to work with. And you can see a few of the fonts there, favourite horror fonts, but of course there's thousands of others that you can use. And in fact the one I used for the cover of this example is not even shown there, but there you go. Hot romance, another version, another genre. Hot Nights in Memphis. And again, there's a red tint behind Hot Nights in Memphis and a red tint behind a Kali de Managua story. I couldn't read my own text there for a moment. There you go. Again, I've got notes there turned off, and I've got a fog across that image, but I've turned it off. It'll be in the file if you want to download it. You can turn it on, turn it off. That's the good thing about these layers. You can experiment with what looks best. Now my name, the author name there, I've simply got Robert Chalmers there. You might like to put your own name obviously in there. I don't want to be titled on your books, but I would suggest you don't leave it plain red, plain white like that, a plain font. I've just put that there to show you where I've got the author name. Some people like to have the author name really large, as you would with Hot Nights in Memphis. Make that your author name and make the story the small one. I'm a bit the other way. I prefer people to know what the story name is and pick up my name secondary to that. I'm not really famous. I'm not famous at all. So having my name in huge bold text is really no benefit. There's the main type of fonts used in this genre, and you can see you would recognise those fonts if you see them on a hot romance. Now sci-fi and fantasy is another thing altogether. Completely different. Again, the tagline, only the toughest survive. The image is not telling the story. The image on the screen, the cover, simply suggesting to a casual observer that this is a sci-fi story. It's not really fantasy, but it could be related to that genre. Fantasy genres usually have dragons and swords and things like that on them. Now, and I haven't got a fantasy example in this group. I've only done 6. Maybe I'll do more next time around, because it is my intention to expand this idea into a full, shall we say, tutorial that you can follow. But I don't want to make this first one too long. People lose interest, go away, and don't come back. And in this genre, it's common to use fancy fonts, and you can see the Bad Grunge, Roboto, Spy Agency, Space Marine, those things there. Good fonts to use. Now, sweet romance and literature books. You've all seen the literature books there, usually obscure authors. Sometimes they would have you think they're very famous, sometimes they are, but you'll often be able to distinguish them if you're walking through a library, which is a good place to check for book covers. Have a look at the covers in the various sections of a library, and you can see you could almost catalogue them by their covers. And where will you find books like this? In the sweet romance and literature section. But again, if somebody sees that cover, people will generally know exactly what the book should contain. I mean, it would be really stupid to have a cover like that with an almighty horror story between the pages. People would be disappointed and it would not be good. So let's move on to the next one. There's the texts and fonts used in this genre, and they're fairly standard. You'll recognise those. A romantic literature book cover, and you might use those fonts. Baskerville, very common. Apple Garamond, very common. Trajan and Cinzel. Okay, we're almost at the last one, and this is the one I like. Well, of the genres that I write in, it's a thriller, and this is one I'm writing. A Harry McGovern thriller, The Zoo Station Cipher, and that's by me. And again, I haven't got my name, the author name there. I haven't done any work to that, but I will. You'll notice the text in this is in uppercase. They're all capitals, except for Harry McGovern thriller. That's in upper lowercase, but it's red, and there's a reason for this. This is very common in thrillers. And again, the two images used have been merged together in a transparent gradient, really, with the opacity much reduced. These, of course, as I said, you will find in the downloadable .af photo files, and you can modify them, change them, move them around as you wish. And when you look at that one, the titles are written in capitals. There's just a bit of text there. You can pause the video if you like to read that, unless you're a very fast reader. And one of the secrets of the front of this book is that you want them to look clean and simple, not extra flourishes. You don't want to be standing there trying to decipher what the name of the book is. It might be a spy thriller, but you don't want to have to get into code breaking just to read the title. So the fonts usually are something like Universe, Gotham, Helvetica, or Babas New. Very common, those fonts, widely available. So nearly done. In this video, in the interest of keeping it short enough to be interesting, I have only detailed, and brief detailed at that, one cover. The others are showing, and their respective master files are available for download, so you can explore them at your leisure. And I'm always available for comments. If you want to write to me and say, how on earth did you do that? Feel free to do so. And as soon as I see the message, I'll get back to you. Meantime, thank you for watching this first example, and don't forget to subscribe. Save your work as you go. Most important, don't just save it on the screen, save as, so you make a copy and put it somewhere. That gives you 2 copies. You can never be too sure. You don't want to have to get right through a book cover that's got 16 or 20 layers and suddenly find you've lost it. Where did I put that file? Notes on this exercise: the downloadable files are available from my website at the first one and the second one. Why have I got 2 sites? Because I'm slowly going over the next year maybe to replace the first one, Robert Chalmers UK, with the second one. It's a Wix site, and I'll move everything onto that. I'm still undecided about that, but in the meantime, you'll find most downloads in both places. As I mentioned before, please remember to subscribe and like my channel on YouTube. It really helps me, keeps me going. And that's the end. All finished.